I think I'm good. All right. All right. All right, so great to be here. I'm so happy about the fire, and our family's excited about the snow, but I think all of you are a little fed up. So like on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being this is like whatever, 10 being you're raging against the snow. You solid 7? You're a 1. Any 10s? It's 12? We got 10s. Oh, we got an 8? Oh, yeah. It's true. It's true. All right. Very good. Oh, I like hearing. And we got a 1. There we go. All right. So let me just circle back to the treat yourself conversation. For those that weren't able to kind of contribute, anyone have time to think about their treat yourself? Given $100, you just want to go out and just do something fun. What would you do? What would you buy? Yeah, Joseph? So yeah, we got a lot of Barnes and Nobles, and you just spend money quick there. Do you have any type of thing you'd get? What section of the bookstore would you go to? So like a fiction, classic, all right. That's good. Yeah, Anya?
2 options.
All right, 2.
The first option is getting the acai bowl.
I'm sorry, the what?
Acai
Oh,
bowl.
acai, yep.
And then going either to Barnes & Noble, which I would get any book because I read any kind of.
Okay, so cookbooks included? All right.
Or into Gate. And then the second option is I go to what's it called? REI and then buy whatever.
REI is a good call. All right, yeah, Cooper?
I'm doing 2 things.
All right, 2.
I'm fixing my longboard that got broken doing and then I'm buying a new fin.
Longboard.
And then I'm buying a new fin for my board.
What kind of fin? What kind of fin?
Hatchet.
I have, do you know the HP one? It like,
Yes.
it like does that?
Yeah.
It's sick, right?
Almond came out with that shape.
Yeah, so this HP one is like my favorite possible longboard fin because it bends right here, so you can turn and then,
When you curve on them, it's so
yeah, and then it has this real, so you can nose ride.
I'm more of like a nose rider. The hatchet is like so chill. And like, I ride a 9.6.
Yeah, I'm a 9.6.
Dude, we should eat lunch and just talk surf. No one here knows how to talk.
What's your board? Who's your shaper?
Terry Sennett.
Okay, so fun. I'm
Terry
a,
Sennett and Robert August.
oh, you got a Robert August, nice. Very fun, cool.
So, to everyone else in this room, for the past 45 seconds, you've both been speaking gibberish.
All right, yes.
I would get chicken parm from an Italian restaurant, and then I would take it with me, and I would fill up my car with gas. And I would just go on. Yeah, what? I can't do that.
Nope,
What? Why?
because it's too practical.
Too practical. Oh, okay, fine. And then I would walk because I can't use my car. Okay. And I
Yeah, Uber is kind of decadent, but there's no Ubers around here, right?
What if I like rent a
A
limo?
limo, I like that. That's a treat yourself moment right there.
Yeah, I'll take a limo on a sunset drive, and Cassidy's there. I'm there. On a sunset drive.
All right, yeah, Garrett.
I would buy a brand new George Kittle jersey.
George Kittle, so that's Chiefs, right? Oh no, 49ers. Oh, nice. I like, yeah.
NFL sucks.
All right, yeah, Steven. $100? You might get like a really nice pick, you know, or some good strings, yeah. And all right, all right, one more. Anyone who didn't share last time? Yeah, Josh.
I would go to the movie theaters with my friends, watch a movie, and then go to a restaurant and also eat with my friends, and then go to a store and buy a Lego set, take it back to my house, and we'll all build it.
Nice. So yeah, get the Death Star, but that's only like $1,100. Yeah. There you go. Nice. All right. So we're gonna be going into another topic, budgeting. This is like one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm like passionate about budgeting. It's to a degree that's probably unhealthy, but I'm going to kind of tell you a little bit about what I've learned and kind of really try and figure out why budgeting and it is in fact a biblical type of attitude and endeavor. I like this Jim Morrison quote. Here's an equation worth remembering. $5 earned minus $7 spent equals an unhappy life. So there's a practical nature of budgeting, but there's also a spiritual nature. So I want to draw out the spiritual nature, and I also want to draw out the practical. And so we're going to talk about a few different things. But first, let's just kind of recite the Lord's Prayer. So let's go ahead and do that. So, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive. I know, right? Yeah, and I agree. There's different versions, so it gets a little uncomfortable. You guys got it. All right. What I want to focus on in that entire thing is this idea of daily bread. Do we really pray for daily bread? It's kind of provided for us. You know, what I've learned from culture, if I want bread, I don't ever need to wait. I'll go to the store, get it. I'll provide for me. Let me get my handouts. Make sure I get these right. All right. How often have we truly asked for daily bread in our lives? And this is a part of one of the most important prayers we could ever ask is, the Lord's Prayer and daily bread. And yet, it's very tempting to think, our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. We can talk about forgiving our sins. We can talk about forgiving others. We can talk about your kingdom coming. But how often do we really think about daily bread and say, hey, Lord, I got that covered. I don't actually need to pray for daily bread. We're good. We're good on that one. Daily bread is literally something that's all around us. I don't need to pray for it. This is the most extreme anti-Lord's Prayer example I'm going to show you was a Super Bowl commercial many years ago, or it was about 2 years ago, I think. So let me show this to you. So in this case, when I saw this commercial, I was like, this is like extreme on many levels. But let's look at what happens here. All right. So there's so many levels of this commercial that I just was processing when it happened in the Super Bowl. I stopped paying attention to the game because I'm like, I can't believe that commercial just happened. But for me, do you not have patience? Do you not have money? No problem. I got things under control. I'm going to literally open up a credit card while candy is stuffed into my face. I'm not even patient enough to wait to buy it. I'm eating it before I've even paid for it. And so, this could be this daily prayer. Give us this day our daily sugar without needing cash on hand. I'd say that's maybe something that someone might actually pray. And that was what Apple Pay in this commercial was answering. Do you pray this prayer? We got you covered, So something to kind of ponder, how nervous would you be if you relied on someone else for your food? Like how stressful just inherently would that be if you actually didn't have full control over your food? If daily bread actually was something you had to ask for, like how unnerving would that be? what our current kind of society has built up is we have lots of choices. Our current spending system tends to leave us ungrateful and full of stress and regret. The more choices we have, the more we get paralyzed, and that was featured in the research of this author. I think it's Barry Schwartz. Barry Schwartz. So, Paradox of Choice. Anyone read any Barry Schwartz? Fantastic book. But what he studied is that he says that we have unlimited possibilities. Learning to choose is hard. Learning to choose well is harder. Learning to choose well in a world of unlimited possibilities is harder still, perhaps too hard. And he said part of the downside of abundant choice is that each new option adds to the list of trade-offs, and trade-offs have psychological consequences. The necessity of making trade-offs alters how we feel about decisions we face. More important, it affects the level of satisfaction we experience from the decision we ultimately make. And the big thesis of this book is that choices, as they become greater, our regret becomes even greater. We experience so much regret. We experience all sorts of emotions that vary from shame to being paralyzed as we're thinking about making all of our choices. And so we're kind of set up bad. I don't know if you've seen documentaries where people, and even you all, yeah.
I have a question, is that okay?
Oh, please, yeah.
Okay, as you're like saying through this, would this also apply to like, because as I'm thinking through like theology, when we make choices, we also live in the Lord's sovereignty and like His will, like actions that we make. Could that add to the satisfaction that we're lacking through choices?
So you're saying if we go too far into our responsibility, we're getting stressed out because we're not giving enough credit to God's sovereignty? Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean like as a Christian walking like through these choices.
Yeah.
And making these choices, like in theory, what we're saying is that God, we wouldn't have satisfaction because we live in the truth. But since we are believers, our trust is in the Lord who's sovereign, and like we believe that like He has predestined, like He protects situations. Can that kind of change that?
Yeah, I'd say it takes the edge off of it. Because if you're stressed, so college is a great example. If you have to choose between two colleges, it's one of the most stressful moments of your life. And I remember I had to choose, and it's just incredibly stressful. If you believe in God's sovereignty, the edge is off because you think He's a part of it. But the fact that you have to choose adds stress. Like it just naturally adds stress. And then imagine having to choose between 10 and having them all be good, and having them all be wildly going to affect your kind of your trajectory in your life. That just gets super stressful. And and when people, and this happens with people growing up in America, they go on mission, they come back. The biggest part of culture shock is the choices. Like I know I've heard stories where missionaries come back and they go in a grocery store and they just start crying. They just start crying because they're not used to having to make so many choices all the time. And whenever you work with immigrants, when they come into, one thing you're helping them do is helping them navigate the fact that we have to make so many choices all the time. And so yeah, there are so many stories of people going and they're just like, the cereal choices are incredible. The peanut butter choices are incredible. There's just nonstop choices. And the paradox is choice we love. It's a part of human dignity. It's a part of human flourishing. But there's a certain point where it becomes tyranny, is how he puts it. It gets really difficult. And so, we can get our daily bread, but we have so many choices on bread. And we kind of enter into a place where we're stressed out about our choices. And so what we want to think about is gratitude, and then I'm going to kind of shift from daily bread to gratitude and then back again. But gratitude is something that bolsters our well-being, and I'm going to show off how the field of psychology shows this, and then also how the Bible shows this very clearly. So numerous studies have provided evidence that gratitude leads towards human flourishing. Grateful people have been shown to be more extroverted, agreeable, open, and conscientious, and less neurotic. Grateful people are less angry, hostile, depressed, and emotionally vulnerable. They experience positive emotions more frequently. They tend to have greater competence, dutifulness, and achievement striving. These are all studies that the psychology literature has had. Gratitude is strongly related to all aspects of well-being. So we want to take seriously this idea of gratitude, and what we're being robbed of is this idea that daily bread is something we get, and so it's very difficult if it's something we get that for us to be grateful in it, because it's just something we're grabbing. And the guy with the candy bar, he leaves. He's not feeling grateful. He's feeling proud. He's feeling like a master and commander. He's feeling like he got himself bread. And that's different than being grateful. And so, just in general, how grateful are you on a daily basis? It's something we should always cultivate just naturally if we want to have better flourishing. But the Bible's very, very clear on this. It's not just looking at anthropology where we study people. If we look at the Bible and do theology, we are meant to be a thankful people. And these verses just confirm it. So so here's Colossians 2:7. Rooted and built up in him, established in faith just as you were taught, abounding in thanksgiving. So it's not just be thankful, it's pretty strong language that we're to abound in thanksgiving. Do not be anxious about anything, with everything, prayer and supplications with thanksgiving, let your requests be made. So as you're asking for something, that's a difficult time to be thankful because you're saying, I have something I need, but you're meant to be thankful even in that moment. Let us come into his presence with thanksgiving, make a joyful noise. So give thanks in all circumstances. And what was the latest circumstance where you did not give thanks? And I think we have a good example right now, just in general with the snow, and perfectly good reason. But it's just interesting when you actually look at Scripture and you actually look at how we were made psychologically, and we're meant to be grateful. And when we are, we flourish. When we aren't, there tends to be hard things that occur. Now, when it comes to gratitude, the way that we can really cultivate gratitude is we do a gratitude journal. This becomes a powerful tool. So gratitude journals are powerful tools that have been studied in psychological literature. One of the first gratitude journals tested in an experiment involved participants writing 5 things they were grateful for in a weekly gratitude journal. Those who wrote down what they were grateful for ended up with better emotional and psychological scores, and the findings have been replicated many times over. This is a great quote from Ben Stein. I'll tell you how to feel rich, which is far better than being rich. Be grateful. It's the only totally reliable get-rich scheme. And I don't know, when you guys journal, is gratitude, I'm sure, because that whole Acts thankfulness is a part of that. So I'm sure you've already been embedding kind of gratitude into your journaling. But psychologically, it's been shown that it really does cultivate it when we journal it. And I was a part of a study where we actually did a financial gratitude journal. So this is where I'm going with this. A financial gratitude journal. It was published in the Journal of Positive Psychology. We took a sample size of about 1,000 people, and we asked them to journal daily 3 things they were grateful for that had to do with money, financially. And what we found in this study was that the participants who journaled 3 good financial things each day, they had much higher happiness and much higher financial satisfaction compared to the control groups that we had. So what if we simply looked at our spending each day and noted how God was providing for us? This could be a financial gratitude journal. What I call this is daily tracking of our spending. It's a formative liturgy that cultivates biblical gratitude for God's provision of daily bread. It brings it back to us, this lost art of praying the Lord's Prayer. When we do something repetitively, it's a liturgy, and it starts to form us. And right now, the way we're being formed with money is we're being formed to think that daily bread is our responsibility, and we're not receiving, we're just taking. And if we don't have it, then we just get into debt. And we'll be talking about debt tomorrow. But what this does, when you simply do a type of financial gratitude journal, then you're, and if you do it daily, and you can do it weekly as well, but the process of regularly doing it and couching it in this idea of being grateful, give us this day of daily bread. And what this financial gratitude journal does is it provides evidence of how God's providing, like crystal clear evidence. So we're going to show what that means. You know, a daily tracking habit helps me slow down, recognize God's provision in everything, from food to rent to cell phone bills. You know, have you ever journaled about money? Do you, besides just, you know, asking for more or being stressed about it, do you believe money is a matter of the heart? And so, you know, I think if we think about daily bread as something we want to recognize as God's providing, then we can actually get into a state of gratitude, which is really healthy for us. So I want to give a modern-day parable of a young manager. So imagine a father decided to give his 21-year-old son some responsibility to manage a part of the family business. The father sits the son down and explains that $10,000 will be given to him every month. Father does not give much guidance about how to spend the money. The son does not ask. 6 months pass. The father calls the son into the office and asks him, "What have you done with the family money?" The son is surprised by the question and sulks a bit. Without raising his eyes, the son quietly says, "I don't know." The father is shocked. "How can this be?" The son shrugs and says, "I haven't been paying attention." So, in general, what do you think the response of the father should be or is to this "I wasn't paying attention"? What are some types of, yeah?
I don't think that he educated his son well on how to manage the money, and so his son didn't know what to do with it. And so really, I mean, the father could be upset, but it's mostly on him for not educating his son how to manage the money.
Yeah, so it could be regret that he didn't do something different. What are some other responses? What was that? Neither were you? Oh, the father wasn't. Yeah.
Could be anger of it's been 6 months. He's given him 60 grand at this point. What
Yeah.
did you do with 60 grand?
Yeah. No communication, so anger for sure. Any other thoughts? So, in general, let's make this we have just a father, a normal father, but let's make this our heavenly Father. And in general, what ends up, this is actually kind of how things work, because the Father, he's the owner of all things, and everything we get, we're entrusted, we're a steward. And so we have this situation where, in my mind, the most basic behavior that makes sense when you're given something is just to kind of keep track of what you're doing. Just to kind of keep track. This is what I did. And if the Father's like, well, you shouldn't have bought it all on, you shouldn't have just done Taco Bell every day, that's not a good idea, then that's his opportunity to communicate that. But when there's no records, then there's no communication. So it's just kind of like the basic idea of being a steward is that you keep a record, you pay attention to what you're doing, and this idea of stewardship is the best thing you can do is shine a light bright on what's going on. And what happens when you shine a light bright is your spending becomes light. Anything that, and Ephesians has this great verse, everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes light. So could you imagine your spending becoming a light? And the key to spending becoming a light is that you need to shine a light bright on it. You need to understand, you don't need to be necessarily educated to where you're financially savvy and you're doing everything right. You just need to shine a light bright so it's clear what you're doing, because that's the basic nature of managing someone else's money, is that you just keep track. So you can communicate. That's the tool of communication between an owner and a manager. Sin, it festers in the darkness. Darkness, when we spend money and we know that no one will ever know, that's going to cultivate a lot of behaviors that aren't necessarily going to be as good as they could be. But when you keep track, and when you shine a light very bright on what you're doing, so that you see, so that the Lord sees as you see, so you have this vertical vision, and then you also have a horizontal vision where others get to see and get brought in, and you actually, because every spending decision you make affects this entire community. There's no spending decision that you make that's just independent. There's one, it's the fact that you made a choice, that what you have is given to you, so it affects you and the Lord. But money is something that is communal. Everything you have is impacting everything. So I think one of the most important things to recognize is it's not about being financially savvy. It's about simply shining a light bright so that you can start communicating to the owner. And when you shine a light bright, you can communicate to the owner, but you can also communicate to others who have God's Spirit, who can communicate and speak into your life. And naturally, when you see clearly what's going on, it's like your behavior starts to naturally change. And it's a lot like, has anyone ever tried, so there's a difference between dieting versus counting calories. So dieting is like an evil word, just like budgeting is an evil word. Dieting is where you just restrict, but counting calories is where you just track. And it's amazing the difference. Has anyone experienced the difference between counting or tracking versus just restricting? Yeah, you have. It's a big difference. Like when you just start to shine a light and just start to keep track of what you're doing, you naturally start to change how you behave. And it's much more like a positive way versus where you just say, I'm gonna restrict, I'm gonna tighten the belt. So in general, I think the very nature of us receiving means that there's a certain level of responsibility where we're being entrusted not only with money, but also all of our time and our talents. We should kind of keep track of what we're doing. And when we kind of track it, that's our moment to recognize God's daily bread and be grateful. So it all comes together when you do a tracking. There are budget haters out there. So one budget hater that I want to highlight is Robert Frost. So he wrote this poem. I imagine he wrote this poem after maybe his wife was like, what are you doing with money? And then he's like, never ask how money spent where the money thinks it went. Nobody was ever meant to remember or invent what he did with every cent. And he's like, I fought with my wife and now I'm going to make a poem about it. But so although Robert Frost strongly suggested that nobody should ever ask of money spent, when I sit down to track my income and expenses, I'm making a strong statement that I disagree. The more I show others my money life, the more I'm able to have the Lord search my heart and ask him to convict me if there's a pattern of spending that's not pleasing to him. I want to demonstrate to myself, to Jesus, and to my community that I take seriously the role God has given me to steward his money. It's his. And we can say that we know it's his, but if we're actually like keeping track and then presenting it before him in a type of a journal, then we're actually demonstrating that we actually believe that's true. And so then it kind of goes back to, who do you think the Father is? If you think the Father is like some angry person who's going to be mad of how you spent money, then you're going to want to like hide it. You're going to want to bury your talents, like the parable of the talents. But if you think that the Father is incredibly loving, and you think that everything is grace, and that he's just so excited because this is an important part of your heart, and you're presenting it before him, and he just wants to talk to you, and he wants to help you grow, then this is going to be an amazingly fun time. This is going to be a time that draws you near to him. My tracking times are rich times between me and the Lord. I just feel his pleasure. I feel his presence because I care so deeply about this, like about money. Money affects every part of my life. And so when I'm tracking and then I get to have these moments of just gratitude that they just like wash over me because I see him providing. When I budget, when I show my utility bill, when I show my grocery bill, like that's daily bread, that's daily shelter, that's all these incredible things. And I'm going to show you my process today. But yeah, I want evidence. For me, it's so important in life to find clear things that actually demonstrate that you believe things, not just talking, not just like words. I want to see like actual concrete evidence that I'm doing what I believe, and this to me is a big one. So, tracking. Again, when you count calories, that can be really difficult to track everything you're eating, but there are like incredible apps that do it for you, to where you can just take a picture of the little nutrition code and then it just brings everything in, and then you can log your main meals, and then after a couple weeks it gets really fast. The same thing happens with apps. So these are all tracking apps. What this ends up doing is it should be 3 minutes or less of your time a day, and then it's about 15 minutes or less if you do it weekly. I'm spelling minutes strangely. Minutes a week. So if you use an app, it's going to really help you. These are the main apps that we're going to talk about, and you're going to have an opportunity to kind of choose one that you want to do. The one that I use is called YNAB. Does anyone know YNAB? Nice. I'm a YNABber. I'm a passionate YNABber, just like a believer. And so YNAB stands for You Need a Budget. But you'll see YNAB, it's a very powerful, you can get a year for free as a student if you have a student email, but it's about $8 a month, but I've saved so much money from it. And it's really good if you're married as well. All of these are really good when you're married, but they're good in general. So there's a relatively new one on the block called FaithFi. And Mint is the only free one on this docket. What?
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
So Mint, all these track really well. So what they do is when you download it, you can sync it to your bank or your credit card or whatever, and you can have it automatically import your transactions, and then you just spend a few minutes a day just categorizing. And it's in those moments of you categorizing your expenses that you go through a financial journaling experience where you express gratitude for everything about how God's showing you clearly how He's providing, and you're shining a light and asking the Lord to search you and perfect you and move you, and just communicating, because this is His money, and you can have a moment where you're grateful. This is Every Dollar. I'm going to show you a future slide has all the websites for you. This is Dave Ramsey's one. So I have mixed feelings about Dave Ramsey. So he does a lot of good, but he yells a lot, and so sometimes I don't like getting yelled at. And so all four of these, I'd say these are like the big four that are awesome. And I tend to have a preference for YNAB. There's a new one on the block. So I go to conferences where they talk about this. This is the new one. This is the really innovative one called Cube. And let me circle back, and I'll tell you about why Cube is pretty innovative and could potentially help you. Good Budget, and this is Pockets Guard, I think. Pocket Guard, and then this one is something. When we go to the page, you'll see. But tracking your expenses regularly provided evidence that you actually believe you are stewarding someone else's money. Do you actually believe that this is someone else's money? If someone gave you money and you didn't track what you did with it, then you probably believe it's your own and you can do whatever you want. But if you actually believe it's someone else's money, then you're going to actually start to keep track of your transactions. So it automatically allows you to, you and whoever else has the budget app, to be on the same page as you track your money life. It's really great if you have an accountability partner where you once a month show each other kind of what's happened. And these create pie charts. They create financial statements. They'll show you whether you spent more than you earned, all sorts of good stuff. It shows a clear picture of how you're spending God's money. You just click on a spending report, and then bam, it's right there. So the majority of people cannot spend less than they earn. SNL has a really fun sketch I'll show you on this.
The advice is priceless and the book is free.
Wow, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, we can put it on our credit card. So get out of debt now. Write for your free copy of Don't Buy Stuff You Cannot Afford. And if you order now, you also receive Seriously, if you don't have the money, don't buy it. A 12-month subscription to Stop Buying Stuff magazine.
All right. So one of the coolest things about doing a tracking habit is you actually get into a place where you're more likely to spend less than you earn. And budget apps and having a daily tracking habit allows you to see clearly what you can afford. And this is a powerful tool that helps you not buy things you can't afford. So just looking statistically in 2021, more than half of people either spent equal to their income or spent more than their income. And a fifth of all Americans are spending more than their income, which is a lot when you think about, a fifth of 300 million people. And we want to be in this bucket of people who are spending less than their income. No financial goal can ever be accomplished when you're spending, when you're not able to save. Saving is kind of the key to making progress on any type of goal you may have. So you want to be in this bucket where you're spending less than your income. And when God's entrusting you with money, you don't want to go beyond the lifestyle He's called you to with the income that you're generating at that moment. So what I love about engaging in a tracking, so I love the spiritual aspects. I love taking seriously being a steward of God's money, shining a light bright so there can be accountability, so that I naturally will start to conform where my spending becomes light. And but then just practically, it creates what I call a sentry who protects you from overspending. So a tracking habit, it acts as a type of sentry at the gate who looks for signs of threats and that are at a distance. So this is a true story. So I do my tracking habit. I like involving it, pairing it with my quiet time, because I'm in worship, and I'm going to show you how I worship with my tracking habit, because it brings me into a place of worship. But I was tracking one morning, and I saw a subscription charge for $69 for a music service that my 5-year-old Sage had started because she learned how to talk to Alexa. I noticed an incorrect late fee of $80 on my credit card, and then that I was overspending, of course, on fast food. That's something that happens more frequently than it should. So within 15 minutes, I was able to clear the charges, then decide to cut back on my spending of fast food. I literally saved over $100 in that one moment. And that's just practical. When you're doing this daily, you actually see things that are happening before they happen, and or as they're happening, and you can kind of clear it. So you just have, basically your eyes are just more wide open about what's happening. When the money mob comes charging, the sentry gets to pull up the drawbridge before they can burn down your whole budget. So you have this kind of mechanism that can stop things before they get out of hand. So I'm curious, have you ever had a situation where your spending got out of hand? So turn to your neighbor and if you can remember a moment, what happened? All right, does anyone have an epic spend down story? Yeah?
I put my entire first paycheck on a pair of Tiffany's earrings.
There you go. And that's similar. So my story is I was I graduated college right after 9/11, and so I was actually interviewing. I was in New York just 2 weeks after 9/11 happened, and the smoke was still in all the streets, and all of my hopes of getting a job kind of were dashed. No one was hiring in finance right after 9/11. And so I ended up doing room service and doing temp jobs, and did that for about 2 years, and then finally got my kind of dream job at Brandis Investment Partners, where I ended up doing the surfing. But my first paycheck, I still remember I went, and this was even before the paycheck. I went to get a new laptop, and I also got a surfboard. But I went on a crazy spending spree. But the laptop I regret the most because they said, "Do you want this?" I said yes. They said, "Do you want this?" They asked me a bunch of questions. I just said yes. I got like the most memory possible, I spent double, so I should have just gone out of there spending $2,000, but I ended up spending $4,000, and it just was like completely unnecessary, and I shined a light bright. I put that, and it's this big expense that I saw, and then the Lord convicted me, and I was like, oh, this isn't my money. Like, I need to understand that. Like, it's not just that I have more money now and I can spend more. I need to be responsible. And the Lord, when he convicts, like, it's a gentle nudge. It's not like a harmful thing. It's just like, oh, you can express that kind of sorrow and then move on. And but anyway, that was my kind of spending spree where all of a sudden I'd been in this place of paycheck to paycheck, and then I just went crazy. And I think the tracking habit really helped me kind of recognize that, like, you know, that $2,000, imagine going to a missionary, imagine going to kids, imagine going to like the community. Like, why did I just blow it on something I didn't need? And all right, does anyone else have a spending spree? Yeah, Jake or?
I got a $3,800 tax return one time.
Okay.
I bought, for, I think it was $3,000, I bought a house in Carpinteria for 1 week.
You did a party house in Carpinteria?
Well, it was with a bunch of people, but
Yeah, well, that's not too bad. I mean, at least you're together with people. We're actually headed to camping in Carpinteria in 2 weeks, our family, so it's fun. But we're not going to surf.
I mean, it's bad over there.
Yeah, it's not. And you're in the ocean, and all of a sudden you got oil on you, and
Yeah.
I don't like that.
I hate Carpinteria.
Yeah, I like camping there, though.
Yeah. Go to Santa.
Yeah, it's a good. That's what we like. That's what we like.
Camp at Santa.
All right, and this actually segues to surfing. So,
Yeah.
with spending, you can be passive or you can be proactive. So I'm a surf instructor. I did surf instructing throughout my college years, and there was 2 types of students that I had. When a student would come out with their board, I'd try and train them most on how to handle the board. And with waves, when waves are coming at you, it's the worst thing in the world to be passive. So what you don't want to do is you want to have your board, and then when the wave comes, you don't want to just be like this. Because anytime that you're passive and you just let the wave hit you, then it's going to knock you over. It's stronger than you. And people don't quite understand with waves and with a board, all you have to do is you have to just kind of push the board against the wave. And the moment you proactively kind of you basically hit the lip of the wave with the board, it'll just let you right over it. You just pop right in. And the same happens if you don't have a board, you just go right under. But you have to hit the wave first. You have to be proactive. And when you do, you go right in, like you neutralize all of its power. And I think in many ways, with money, what people do, especially younger people, it's kind of a universal thing. If you're passive, you're just kind of doing your life, and then as expenses come, you're just like, and then it just knocks you over. And you don't want to be that way in life with money. You want to be proactive. You want to hit first, and then and that's, to me, when you hit first, that means you're being proactive. Means your spending is planned. Your spending tends to be enjoyable, and you tend to underspend. When you're being passive, your spending is disorganized. You're always worried about it, and you tend to overspend. So you don't want to let the daily financial ways of life hit you. You want to hit first. And that, to me, is this tracking habit. It's a very basic thing to do, but you're hitting it first. And you're not controlling anything. You're not saying, I will spend less. You're just saying, I'm going to track what happens. I'm going to shine a light bright. And just like with counting calories, you're not necessarily saying I'm going to eat less, I'm just going to see what I'm eating. In the same way, I'm not going to spend less, I'm just going to see how I'm spending, and I'm going to be serious about it as a steward. So what we want to do is so first go ahead and just in your life up to this point, how proactive have you been? Are you mostly reactive or are you mostly proactive? We want to head towards the proactive side. All right, so tracking our money life, in my mind, it's a spiritual discipline. So I think it should be added to the Foster's disciplines list of spiritual disciplines. It helps cultivate a grateful heart. It creates a greater faithfulness as a steward of God's money, a greater ability to be financially resilient for the sake of a greater sustained generosity. I think it checks all those boxes when you do this regularly. Unlike budgets, which often fail, so budgets is where you say, I'm going to spend less, and they fail because you can't control the future. You don't know if your car is going to break down. You don't know if you're going to lose your job. You don't know all of these things, if there's going to be a health problem, if there's going to be, different things that happen. And so budgets fail, but tracking is something where you can have 100% success. Success is only a matter of whether you put in the small amount of time to do it, not whether you're restricting your spending. So the more you shine a light on your spending, the more you will naturally restrict your spending, because it just comes naturally as you see what's happening. So these are kind of the big four that I would recommend. I'm going to show you YNAB now, but these other ones, so Cube Money, Cube Money is really fun because what it is you open up a bank account with them, and so then you have actual money with them, and then they create different what they call cubes. And so let's say one cube is rents and another cube is groceries, and you have just one cube kind of card, debit card. When you go to buy something, it won't let you buy it until you specify what cube account to draw it from. So it's a lot like having a physical envelope of cash. So does anyone know the envelope system, how that works? So the envelope system, you get your money and then you put everything into different envelopes, and once the envelopes is run out, then you don't spend anymore. The cube is the closest thing to a virtual envelope system because it actually will not let you buy something until you tell it where you're going to draw the money from, and you can't draw money from an envelope or cube that doesn't have money. So Cube, if you really want to kind of do a lockdown on your spending because you're in trouble, then Cube would be my recommendation. It's a little bit of a subscription. I haven't quite adapted it, bless you. But YNAB I really recommend. Let me just show you how YNAB works, and then and you all will have an opportunity to kind of choose which one you think is best for you. I'm going to show you so what I do with my students is I do a daily tracking habit with them whenever I'm in class with them, and I just shine a light real bright. They see all of our transactions that happen, and I talk about it, and I enter into a place of worship, just tracking things. Oh, and we got a Barnes & Noble. Nice. All right. So what happens with YNAB is you kind of put in your credit card. This is our Costco credit card, and we'll talk credit cards tomorrow. But you have your checking account, you have your credit card, and then you just manually or automatically import the transactions. And then when a new transaction comes in, you add a new transaction, and then you have to say, well, it'll automatically say who it's from, but then you categorize it. What kind of category do you want it to be? And so there's like bus, bicycle, education, Apple Watch, electronics, hobbies, coffee, fast food, all those different things. And so for me, let's say I'm just putting in this Barnes & Noble. So before we came here, we bought some books for the kids for the car trip up. When I'm categorizing this and I'm saying, all right, this is in the category kid stuff, and I'm seeing, we spent $81, which was more than we wanted to spend, but there was this like Sage's birthday, and there was a Disney 100th anniversary Disney book, and it was $40, way more than we wanted to spend, but it had all of her favorite princess stories, so we ended up buying it. And for me, just to be so grateful that we get to like buy books for our kids that we get to read together at nights. God's providing the funds for that, and so I get to be grateful. Apple Care, I'm actually pretty grateful that they moved it from being a one-time thing when you buy an Apple phone to being monthly for $4. And if you break your screen, they pay for it, and it's just neat that they have that process. And our phones are just such a helpful tool that God's providing. Has anyone done Phil's Coffee? Phil's Coffee is like one of the best coffee. Yes. So just to be grateful, like good coffee is such a gift from God, and He's providing that. So my wife, she wanted some new running clothes, and what she does is she buys like tons of stuff and then returns everything. So this is a return where she returned to athletic. I found a new burger place that had an amazing breakfast burrito, and I'm a breakfast burrito connoisseur, and a California burrito connoisseur. And this was, do you guys like California burritos? Like carne asada, French fries, something nice, spicy, maybe some guac in there. Oh man, what? Did someone say shrimp? No, that's not. That's not a classic California. That's like the seafood. Anyway, I just go all off of that. But for me, when I categorize this fast food, like I just got to enjoy. And the owner of this store, it was right by where I surf in Huntington Beach. It's a new place. He was like the kindest man. I just enjoyed his company as he made me this breakfast burrito. And it was just a neat moment, like where he was providing this food for me after a surf session. And Paramount Plus, like I don't do streaming very often, but the March Madness was happening, and I wanted to watch it. And so the CBS channels you can stream on Paramount Plus. I would normally not spend this, but I do a bracket with my wife, who often beats me, but I beat her this year. But I didn't beat my neighbor, but it was just a really fun community event to do March Madness, and I was just real grateful that the Lord provided that. And getting a Mountain Dew at 7-Eleven is always a really fun moment for me. Just 7-Eleven Mountain Dew is the best, and I enjoy it, and I can just be grateful for that. We were able to buy food for my. So I have a special giving fund called Friends and Family Fund. So we set aside 1% of our paycheck to a fund that's where we just give to friends and family just because. So if I'm like at Barnes & Noble and I want to just get a book for my sister, I have a big pool of money for that. And or if I just want to get flowers for, or I don't want to get flowers, that's probably, or maybe for my mom or my mother-in-law, we could do that. So here we just bought some food just because from family. So we put that under Triple F. But I love our Triple F fund because it's just, I put 1% in there and then it just grows, and then I get to just like buy stuff for people just randomly for fun. And I get into this moment of just being so grateful that God's provided. And so that's a really fun habit. So anyway, so I just as I'm doing this, I just get into this place of worship because I'm seeing evidence of how God's providing, and I get to see, is there something that we're doing? I can pray about God, like, please search me, and know my heart, and know if there's any way that's grievous to you, if there's any way that's kind of not something you'd like. God can kind of start to nudge me. The Mountain Dew thing, I'm limiting it. I'm trying to limit to like at least to less than once a week. I'm feeling good about that. But if I was doing too much, I'd probably start to feel a little bit of Holy Spirit nudge on that. And then once you categorize things with YNAB, you have what are called budgets. So you have virtual envelopes. So let me get into mine. Sorry. So, bummer, I forgot. What was that? Oh, the dinosaur, yeah. So I keep forgetting because I have Wi-Fi when I'm over there, but not right here. Or do they turn off the Wi-Fi during this time? Or okay.
Well, he probably has Wi-Fi over there because the apartment did.
Yeah, he probably does not have our Wi-Fi.
That one doesn't drop. It's just because you're not close enough to that.
Okay. All right. Well, with YNAB, what they do is they put, whenever you get paid, you put it into a virtual envelope. And so you just put your money into different envelopes. And so I have an envelope for groceries, I have an envelope for, what's fun, whenever we buy an Apple Watch every 3 years or so, the moment we buy it, we start saving for our next one. So we'll put $5 into the Apple Watch every paycheck. And we put about $7 into shoes every paycheck. And so every year we buy new shoes. Every 3 years we buy a new Apple phone. Every 5 years we buy a new laptop. Every 10 years we buy a new car. And so YNAB helps do that because you just put money into these envelopes and you just kind of slowly save for it. And it's really nice because I'll have to show you the envelopes. Maybe next time I'll show it to you when I'll just do a screenshot of it or something. But we're for Hawaii, for our 10-year anniversary, I knew 3 years ago that we were going to go to Hawaii, so I started putting money into that slowly over time. So that's been growing. But that's YNAB. So it would be great if you all could identify kind of an app at some point. I don't know how much access you have to everything app related, but could you be able to look up apps, or is that not possible? Maybe spring break. Let's make this like a spring break assignment for y'all. Is that okay? I'm not breaking any rules or.
No, we're allowed to download, so they just don't want us re-downloading.
Okay. And so you can just play around. There's trial periods. If you have a student email, you can do this 1 year for free. The FaithFi one is going to eventually make it free for your entire time being a student, but I don't think they're quite there yet. But all of these first four, well, these three all have virtual envelopes. And virtual envelopes to me is the key for a good budget system, a good tracking system, because I love being able to just put money into envelopes. And then when you categorize it, that category of that envelope, it just takes the money out of it. And then it gets really red and bright red when you've overspent. And with Cube, you can't overspend because it won't let you buy whatever you're trying to buy. But with YNAB, what it does is the envelope turns red, and then you can't go to the next month until you fix the red. And so then you have to draw from other envelopes that have money. And so and I was going to show you all that. I have like 4 or 5 envelopes that have gone over. So how about tomorrow I'll show you all that, because we've gone over in some of our envelopes this month. And I love month end. Month end is where I get to kind of fix everything and get all the envelopes green again, and then put all of the paychecks that we've been getting this month into the envelopes for next month. And it's like my wife knows when I'm budgeting because I get excited. All right. So has anyone read Every Moment Holy? It's one of the coolest books I've ever read. Like, our family just loves it. It's a book full of liturgies, and they have a liturgy about drinking coffee. We read the liturgy about going to the mountains before we came up here, but they have a liturgy on tracking your expenses, and I just think it's fantastic. And so let me read it. I highly recommend when you do download your app to go through this liturgy before you start tracking. O God, who does provide all things necessary for our lives, be present with us now. There is little in this life that will so starkly reveal our insecurities and our struggle to trust your tender care, as will the state of our hearts when we consider the state of our finances. When we're anxious about money, O Lord, we can slip easily into a downward spiral of believing that simply having more would guarantee our security. As if our security could ever rest anywhere outside of you, O God. So guard our hearts against that lie. Let us learn to view money and all material things as an arena in which to learn and practice to be a more faithful steward, and as a means by which to invest in eternal things, but never as an end in itself. Month to month, you're teaching us in this paying of bills the slow vocation of trust. Do not abandon us to our anxieties over finances, O Lord, but use those worries to turn our hearts and thoughts towards you. Teach us both a greater contentment and a greater confidence in your constant care. Amen. It's a beautiful liturgy, and I hope you can do that as you track your expenses. So that's what I got. Any questions about the budgeting? Yeah, please.
How much was the YNAB? You said it's free for
So if you have a student address, it's free for a year. So you just have to go to ynab.com/student, or just find the student subscription. If you have trouble finding the student page, there's a student email. I don't think I have it here for you, but you just email them on your student email and say, I want the student rate, and then they give you a year free. It's if you pay yearly, it's $8 a month, and then it's like $9 if not. But it's like, I've saved so much money with it, it pays for itself after a while. Yeah?
As far as like budgeting for, let's say, so growing up and then myself, like when I lived by myself, it was kind of paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Like very little money to be able to save.
Yeah.
How would you say that you could, like how do you choose what gets more money? As far as like groceries, rent, like,
Yeah.
like if you don't have enough money to pay for groceries, what do you take that out of?
Yeah, and I've walked through, there's worksheets with lower income, with people in poverty, where they actually have to make choices. We actually have them prioritize healthcare, groceries, rents, and we have them go through the priorities, like, when you have this amount of money, what are you not going to do? Are you not going to do groceries? Are you not going to do your medication? Are you not going to pay the rent? Like, what's the things that you're not going to do? And what I love about when you're just simply tracking is now you have all the data to then bring that to the Lord and then have Him counsel you. And you also have the data to bring it to others and have them counsel. And so then it becomes a concerted kind of community decision that you make. And with lower income folks, there's a lot of resources where you can get food from public kinds of programs, and you can get housing, and you can get all sorts of things where you don't have to pay the bills in those areas, so then you can prioritize. So that's part of the education, is learning how to resource the free stuff that's available, so eventually then you can whittle it down to, maybe 2 hard choices instead of so many. Does that make sense? But yeah, the data of tracking really helps you then pray about it and make the decisions about what to do and what not to do. But yeah, was there a question over here? Yeah, please. So Mint does not. So Mint is I was on Mint for a while because it's free and I like it. It tracks really well. So if you just want to categorize your expenses and show reports, it does a great job. And you can do a budget where you say, I only want to spend, let's say, $40 in groceries, but as you categorize it, it's just going to go over, and it's not going to. So that what I would love is, let's say you spend less than $40, I'd want the extra $10, let's say, I'd want that to roll into the next month and grow. So good behavior, the envelope gets bigger and bigger, but it doesn't do that. So like when during COVID, we put $80 into our date envelope every year for my wife and I to go on dates. And during COVID, we couldn't. And so I still remember the day where they started opening things up, and we had like this huge amount of money in our date envelope. And so we went crazy and ordered all the best things in the restaurant, got desserts, and got nice steak. But it's really fun. Like when you spend less and the envelope grows, then you get to have kind of more money to do fun things. But Mint doesn't quite do that, because Mint will just turn red and then it just resets the next month. And I found that wasn't as behaviorally fun. Yeah. So, but man, once you get me going on budgeting, I don't stop talking. Yeah.
What did you say,
Pocket Guard. So all of these are great. Yeah. Do you have a question about Pocket Guard?
Yeah, is that like the envelope system as well, like the virtual one?
I think most of these, if they're good, and I have considered the best, they should have a virtual envelope system. Mint's the only one that I just don't like, and there's a chance, I haven't looked at it in a couple months, there's a chance they've changed it, but yeah, I haven't seen that. Good budget for sure, because it has an envelope on its picture, and then, you can just kind of play around with it. I will say, of these top 4, I kind of approve. I think they're great. And the bottom 4, I'm just not sure as much about. Except Cube, it's brand new. That's just only been around for about a year, and that one is actually pretty innovative. But yeah. So, and if you do, I get students that get on YNAB and they become passionate about it too. And Joseph, are you passionate about YNAB? That you're on it? A little bit. Hopefully you'll become more passionate because you're going to feed off of my passion. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
I don't know if you're gonna talk about this a different day, but I have a Roth IRA, and I'm just kind of curious, like, what your thoughts are on Roth IRA, but also just like how much I should be contributing.
Yeah.
Especially mine. Like, I'm 19.
Yeah.
So just how much I should be right now contributing to my Roth IRA.
Yeah.
If that should change.
So Thursday we're going to talk about Roths, what they are. We're going to talk about how much to contribute. We're going to talk about what stocks are, mutual funds, ETF. Yeah, we're going to do all that on Thursday.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right. Well, if that's all, I'll see you all tomorrow evening. Thanks.